Hello. Steve, Canadian Sasquatch, coming at you with another birdhouse build. That's right, last couple of videos we did those nesting shells. This time around we're going to do more of a stereotypical build. As you can see, I have plans. There will be a link down below if you wish to download them and check them out. So we are doing a chickadee house. Chickadees are cavity nesting birds, so they do like the long skinny houses, and we'll get into more of that later. Some other mostly simple tools. You can use a handsaw, you can use just a regular hammer. You will need a drill though for this one, because we do have some holes that we do need to drill out on this guy. So let's get into the tools that we're going to be using. So first off, we're going to have to cut the wood down. And like I said, you can use a handsaw, you can use a table saw, you can use a compound miter saw like we did in the last video. I'm going to be using a circular saw. I'm going to be using a battery-powered circular saw. These are not cheap. It was like $200 or $300, but you can get cheap corded ones. These are like $30, and every beginning woodworker should have a circular saw, because it makes cutting that wood down so much easier than using a handsaw. But if you can't afford it, handsaw works just fine. Next up, we're going to need a drill. Again, you can get a cheapo corded drill. I have no idea how much corded drills cost. I'm going to go battery powered, so I don't deal with the cables all that much. So along with the drill, we'll need drill bits. We're going to use a 3/32 drill bit. We're going to use this for a pilot hole for the one screw that we're using. After that, we will need a 1/4 inch drill bit. That's going to be for some venting holes. And then we need to drill out the front door there. And there's a variety of ways you can do it. You can use a spiral bit like this. You can use a spade bit like this one. You can use a hole saw. This is what I'm going to be using. This is a hole saw today. You can use a Forstner bit. Doesn't matter as long as they're a 1-inch diameter. I actually don't have a 1-inch one, so I'm going to be using a 1 1/8 inch hole saw. And I'm using the hole saw specifically because it's the closest to 1 inch that I have. We got some nails to hammer. So again, any hammer you wish to use, I will be going back to the air gun because that's what I like to use and it's quick and easy. We have that one screw, so we'll need a screwdriver. And this really depends on what type of screw you're going to be using. I'm going to be using a Phillips head, so I've got a Phillips head screwdriver here. And that's it for the tools. And now for the parts and the materials. Like I said, a screw, 1 inch. We're going to use that to lock down the side door that we're going to create. We're also going to need some nails. So these are just 1.25 inch nails. We'll need 2 of these. That's going to create a hinge for our side door, which you'll see when we build it. Any kind of painting you want to do, some paint. If you want to glue it so that it's stronger, especially if you're hand nailing everything together, I find that a little bit of glue helps with the hand nails a little bit better. Use a weatherproof or weather-resistant glue like Tite Bond 3. I won't be gluing today because we're just going to go through the motions of building it. And lastly, we'll need a hunk of wood. The widest that we need is 4 inches, so wood really doesn't come in 4-inch sizes. If you get a 1x4, then it's actually 3/4 by 3.5 inches, so that's not quite right. And if we get a 1x5, then it's going to be 3/4 by 4.5 inches, so it's a little too big. I'm going to be using a 1x6 because that's what I have on hand, and that is actually 3/4 of an inch by 5.5. Here's a list of the sizing right here, so you can see what the board sizes actually are. So when you go to buy your wood, just be cognizant, once again, of what it says it is. It's not quite that big. It's a little bit less. The 1x is 3/4 of an inch. And then the number after that, like the 4 is 3.5, and 8 is like 7 3/4. So that's just things that we gotta keep in mind when we're buying the wood. All right, so the first thing we gotta do is we gotta cut down our wood here. So the first piece we're gonna do is gonna be the back, and we're gonna measure out 13.5 inches to right there. And if I didn't mention, in the tools, we will also need a tape measure and a pencil and our straight edge. And we're going to draw a straight line like that. Now, the nice thing about a speed square is you can also use it as your guide for your circular saw. So what we're going to do is we're going to line up the circular saw here, like so, and then we're just going to cut across. Just like so. So that was the first piece, and now we're going to do the roof, which is 7.5 inches. So 7 1/2 right there. Draw our line, lining up the saw. So what I'm doing specifically when I'm lining up the saw is I'm lining up left side of the saw blade here to the line. That way I'm cutting on this side, the right side of the line, so that our piece is exactly what we measured out to be, rather than cutting on the line and we lose a little bit due to the thickness of the blade. And there we go. Now we're going to do the sides, and those are 9 inches. So we are going to measure out 9 inches, draw our line, line up our saw, just like that. And since we're doing the sides, which are going to be identical in size, what we can do is we can just use this piece here to measure out the next one. Just like so, and cut. And now it's time to cut the front, which is, again, identical to the sides. So we're just going to do the same thing. And then the last piece is the floor, and it will be a 2.5 inch. And there we go. That is all of the pieces cut to size. Now we're going to cut them all to width because they're all too wide. So what I mean by that is you can see they're roughly 5.5, and we need them all at 4 inches. So that's what we're going to do now. Measure everything out to 4 inches and cut them down. So we've got the sawdust here that we're collecting from cutting all the wood. And what we should do is we should actually collect this and save it. Because as I mentioned earlier, chickadees are cavity nesters. So if there's a little bit of sawdust inside their house, it'll be more realistic to them that it's a tree, and they can play around in the actual sawdust and bring it out as if they were cleaning out an actual hole that's in a tree. All right, now we're going to measure out 4 inches on all the boards. Like so. The birds aren't going to care if it's a little crooked. And there we are. We've got all the boards measured to width. So now we just got to cut them. And there we have it. All the pieces are to width, and they are mostly all the same width, which is good. All right, so our next step is we have to take one of our sides, which is going to be one of these 3 pieces, and I'm going to choose this one. Now, what I'm going to do is measure in 1/2 inch right there. This is going to be one of those tricky ones that we need to cut at an angle. So we're going to take our saw And then we're going to adjust it for 45 degrees. Now that we've got our saw at an angle, we are going to line it up just like that. So we cut it at an angle and we have a little bit of a lip, which is exactly what we want. So that is one side cut. Next up is we're going to do some work on the floor here. Measure in about 1/4 of an inch. And we're going to do that on all 4 sides. So what we're doing here is we're measuring in 1/4 of an inch because we're going to cut a 45-degree angle at that 1/4 of an inch. And since I have a speed square, I can just create my angle like that. Now, if you don't have a speed square, what you can do is you just measure in 1/4 of an inch on either side and draw a line between the two. And now we're going to cut these guys. And there we have it. The floor is done. And with that, all of our pieces are cut. And the next step is to drill all the holes that we need. So the first holes we're going to do are going to be our vent holes that are on the sides. So we need our 2 sides here. We are going to drill 4 of these. So what we're going to do is 1 inch, 1 inch, and it's going to be 1.5 inches down. So following that 1 inch mark that we just did, right there is where we're going to drill a hole. 1.5 inches down, right there. That will be our first hole. So let's go ahead and measure it out on this one as well. So now we've got our 4 holes that we need to drill. Got the drill, we've got the 1/4 inch drill bit, and we're just going to pop it off to the side here, line the bit up with the hole, and so we got our 2 holes drilled now. We do have a little bit of blowout on the other side, which that's fine. If you want, you can sand these down to make them look pretty, if you're going to paint it and all that. I'm just going to leave it as is. And we're going to grab our 3/32 drill bit. It's a little tiny one. This is going to be the pilot hole for the 1 screw that we're going to be using in this. And we're going to do it on this one that we did the bevel on. 2 inches, 3/8 of an inch from the bottom. So on that hole right, or that spot right there, we are going to drill our little hole. Just like that. Now we just have our front, which we're going to use the hole saw for here. So we'll get that ready here. 1.5 inches. And we're going to measure across 2. So right here is where we're going to drill our hole. So we line up this guy and go. So we got it part of the way through to this point. We're flipping it over and we're doing it from this side now. And the reason we do it that way is to prevent all of the blowout that will happen. There's a little bit right there, but there would have been a whole lot more if we just drilled straight through. And with that, that is all of our holes done. So now it's time for assembly. Alrighty, it is time for assembly. All right, now we are going to work on attaching the floor with the bottom of the side. And the bottom of the side is the side that we did not drill on. And then we're just going to line things up. I think I'm going to do it this way. Pop a nail in. Pop a nail in. Next, we're going to do the back. We are going to measure in 1 inch from the bottom. And measure it in right about there. And we have the back attached to the floor and one of the sides. Now we're going to do the front. We're just going to line it up like so. The hole goes at the top. And we're going to pin a nail right there, just like so. We are going to do the roof, which we just kind of line up flush with all the bits on top here. Just like so. And then we can turn it around and do the back. All right, so we are almost done. We got this last piece left, and we just need to attach it, which is slightly tricky on this one. But so this is where we're actually going to require the old school hammer and nail, because we're using these nails here, and they're going to be the hinges for this guy. So we are just going to right about there. So that was very carefully nailing that guy down. And then we're going to do the same on this side. Approximately the same spot on the other side here. Right about there. Like so. And now it has a nice little hinge action going on. And that's where the screw comes on. That little hole we created right here, just like so. And that locks the door in place. And it is done. And there we have it. Nice, easy build, Chickadee house. Could definitely use a little tidying up around the edges here. Make it a little bit nicer for the old chickadees. Chickadee. So we've got the vent holes here. On either side, the front door, and as you can see on the bottom, we've got the little cutouts. That's so that the chickadees have some place to throw debris or whatever, or if water does get inside, there's easy access for the water to get out. And then, yeah, with those two nails that we did, we made it so that we can easily access the inside of it. The reason you want to be able to access the inside of this is after the chickadees are done for the year, they'll move on. You'll want to come along and clean out the inside, whatever debris or whatever's in there, their old nests, toss in some fresh sawdust for them. Super easy project. Like I said, I got the plans. They're in the link down below, along with all the tools that I use and other various tools that you can use. And all those links are affiliate links to Amazon. So if you click on them, whatever you buy, we'll send a few pennies my way, but not cost you anything extra. So go ahead, click those links down below. And with that, my friends, we are done. We got another birdhouse done. For those cute little chickadees. Chickadee. Thank you for joining me once again for a birdhouse build. And be sure to hit that like button or that dislike button. Comments and questions down in the comment section down below. Ask me whatever you want. I don't care. And we'll see you guys in the next video. Cheers, everybody.